Welcome everyone to the Oracle EPM 11.2 Upgrade podcast. This is Tim Ahmed. A lot of you know me as I'm very passionate about HFM, having implemented this for the last 18 years or so. Therefore, very much interested in the upgrade and the future of HFM. We will be doing a series of podcasts featuring the 11.2 upgrade, the future of HFM and FCCS. This first podcast will cover questions submitted by the user community regarding the Hyperion EPM upgrade to 11.2. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Rich Wilkie, Al Marciante from Oracle, and Maya Magel, who's currently at Amazon, but she is going to ask questions independently on behalf of the user community. Rich, over to you. If you just give a quick 2-3 minutes introduction, who you are, and thank you very much.
Great. So this is Rich Wilkie, Vice President of Product Management, focusing on the financial close. So I've been with Oracle and Hyperion since 2000. So I'm in my 21st year. So like Tim, I've been doing this an awful long time, and I'm responsible for both on-premises, so HFM, as well as financial close management, et cetera, as well as the cloud. So it's an awesome opportunity to come here, answer any questions, and hopefully educate the community. And the more information you guys have, the better decisions you can make. And that's my job, to make sure everybody has the right information. So it's great to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. And over to you, Al.
Sure, thank you. I'm Al Marciante. I'm a Senior Director of Product Management within the EPM team. Like both Tim and my colleague Rich, I've been around quite a while. I found my way into Oracle really through Arbor Software back in '97. I started as an S-based pre-sales person, and then continued in as Hyperion and Arbor came together, moving into product management first for S-based, and then ultimately leading and building the planning and profitability and cost management teams as part of the EPM organization. And now within Oracle, I primarily lead reporting, SmartView infrastructure, and some of our PM operations activities for both cloud and on-prem. I also serve as the main point of contact for on-premises, especially for things that we do under the Apps Unlimited banner for EPM. And then just a general EPM, I'm a generalist really for EPM Cloud as well. So participate in a lot of conferences, et cetera. So my life prior to this was as a financial IT person. So very much aligned through the financial close process and optimizing those processes for the company I work for. And like Rich, we do a lot of education here. So these are always great opportunities to share some insight. There's lots of different things that float around in terms of rumors or whatever, where products are at, what the commitments are, and everything else. So this is actually a great opportunity to kind of lay all that stuff out for you all to kind of understand where we are, where we're going, and what your expectations should be. So thank you again for letting us participate.
Okay, thank you, Al, and over to you, Maya.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Maya Magel. I'm Chartered Certified Accountant. I've worked as accountant for over 15 years and been in EPM industry since 2007. I have successfully completed multiple HFM implementation projects, and I have done every part of EPM project delivery in many multinational and blue chip companies. Obviously, I'm joining this podcast as an independent representative of end user community, and obviously trying to help the end user community to learn more about the upgrade and the future of HFM and FCCS. And I will not be representing any business at this point in time. Thank you.
Thank you all. So without further ado, let's go straight to the questions which have been eagerly submitted by the community out there. So the first question is, what does it mean for Hyperion EPM to be in Applications Unlimited? And why should customers care about this?
Sure, yeah. The Applications Unlimited program, if you're not familiar with it, it's available in most of Oracle's on-premises applications, including eBiz, PeopleSoft, JD Edwards, and of course, what we're talking about here too, Hyperion EPM is part of it. And what that program really does is it kind of has three main tenets, if you will, around it, but it kind of defines our commitment to customers. So we try to give at least a 10-year visibility line to the customers, knowing how long the release will be under Premier support. So just earlier this month, it got extended, or really at the end of last month, I should say, it got extended for another year. So right now, our current release 11.2, which introduces us to Apps Unlimited, that's the release that we brought into it, that is now supported under Premier support till at least 2032. And then next year, in the February-March timeframe, the Apps Unlimited teams get together again, and chances are to roll together another year. So we're trying to make sure customers that have an on-premises investment that want to continue to run there, whether they're running it on premises or whether they're running it on OCI or web services, Amazon Web Services or Azure or wherever they may be running it, that they've got that line of sight. Secondly, it gives us gives customers an understanding and commitment to innovation. So we do have active roadmaps. We will be introducing new features. Some of that you'll be talking about on a future podcast. And it's really to make sure that customers also know that they could run the same application on premises or on hosted infrastructure, right? So we've had a lot of large customers that have already made the move to 11.2, but they're also winding down some of their on premises, their data centers themselves, and they're starting to use more cloud infrastructure from various vendors, including Oracle. So it provides both of those opportunities. And then lastly, as I mentioned, it's a commitment to the product. So the roadmap, there is an ongoing R&D investment. We're continuing to do releases. In fact, we have a pretty good cadence now for 11.2 that we release somewhat on a quarterly basis, where we introduce not only new tech stack or new features in there, or new product functionality, but we'll also be making sure we're keeping up with various third-party and infrastructure techs. And really, just to round it out, really what you should take away from this, as a customer, is really your benefits are, peace of mind, no surprises. So you're not going to suddenly find out that there's an end of life or something else that's posted for something you're using. But it's also, this is the last major upgrade that customers should be doing. Everything else should be in place, patch, like OPatch or patch type upgrades after that, or installations. So you don't have to do additional ones. And you really have that 10-year line of sight, really gives you ample time to really look at your roadmap, whether you're going to go to cloud in the future, whether you're going to peel off some business processes for the cloud, but keep some on-prem, all those types of things. So it gives you kind of the ultimate flexibility on how you proceed forward.
Thank you, Al. I would ask next question. How do customers stay educated on the support phases and policies?
Right. So one thing we always want to make sure is the good thing about being at Oracle is almost everything is public. All our documentation is public, videos, et cetera. But so is our lifetime support policy, just like you see with Microsoft. You can go out there and ask, what's a SQL Server lifecycle support. And so really our lifetime support policy is out there. It lists all the prior releases. So whether it's, we still get an occasional customer that's still on a version 9 of EPM. Or 11, 11.1, 11.12, those types of things. So it really shows what's available and what the definition of Premier support is, what's the definition of extended support if it's offered, and then what you get with sustaining support. With sustaining support. So it really gives you that. So if you haven't seen that, just Google Oracle Lifetime Support or whatever search engine you use, and it'll get you right to that page with all of the resources for every Oracle product you may be running. So that's all available out there.
Okay, thank you. How easy will it be for businesses to upgrade to 11.2?
Okay, so first and foremost, we refer to 11.2 as it's an out of place upgrade. So what that really means is, 11.1 had its support stack of operating systems, databases, things like that. And 11.2, because it has that line of sight going out 10 years at least, we really look to modernize that whole tech stack. Third party, everything needed to be upgraded, new agreements, everything else that we have within the software. But more importantly, the operating systems, et cetera, are newer. So there's kind of no common point to do an overinstall. So as part of Apps Unlimited, this is really your last major upgrade you have to do. Everything else becomes in place. So really the first step is going to be that you're going to start with a clean system, whether, as a customer, you want to invest in newer hardware or you have existing hardware, you're going to put on the various, operating system and databases as per the support matrix. You would do those. So after we're properly installing and configuring the footprint or laying that down, you install the software, you configure it on the system, then you just start migrating over your apps and content, largely through the LCM capabilities that are available in the product already. And then there's also additional utilities depending on the specific product or module that you're moving over. You'll see that there may be some utilities that you'll utilize as well. So I would say it's hard to give an exact answer because customers have all different types of deployments and how they might do different types of scaling and number of servers and all those other things. But here again, search is your best friend. You could always look for Oracle upgrading EPM system, or just go to the docs.oracle.com and look at the 11.2. And there's a whole section on what those steps are. So that's a very good way for if you're doing it yourself or if you're doing it with an implementer, you really know all the step-by-step that you have to do depending on the different modules you're working with. Whether I'm doing like HFM artifacts, whether I also am bringing up reports from FR, whether I'm doing additional things, migrating from EPMA to DRM, those types of things. That all lays out what you have to do.
Thank you. Would cost of licenses change for 11.2?
So for license cost itself, it doesn't change. On-premises was sold as a perpetual license. So as long as you're current on maintenance, you can do the upgrades. And then you would just stay active on maintenance, which gives you access to each subsequent updates that we issue under the 11.2 code line. So the maintenance portion is important. That gives you all your Premier support, all your access to updates and ability to log SRs and enhancements and all those other things. So there's no additional cost for software though.
Thank you. What are the major changes in 11.2 as compared to 11.124?
Okay, so a couple of things, just obviously from operating system and databases, those are all updated, right? So we're, SQL Server 2016, we're working on 2017 now, and then we'll follow with SQL Server 2019. Part of that gets dependent on Fusion middleware, but you'll continue to see us advancing databases. Operating systems, you could be on Windows 2019 if you want, and Linux, of course, are kind of our two primary deployments that we have there. We've added things like Edge and Chrome from a browser perspective, but probably more importantly I'm running 11.2 or I'm running 11.124 on premises. What are kind of the major changes? One of them is if you used EPMA before, so EPMA, EPM Architect, that's where you can manage your dimensions across multiple applications and just have kind of that central point of maintenance and then deploy it. We're not carrying EPMA anymore in 11.2, but what we are doing is we've replaced it with a restricted use license for DRM. Data relationship management is definitely a world-class master data management tool. It has a lot of features actually that many EPMA customers were looking for. So you can go and use that if you have multiple planning applications or you have planning in HFM and you kind of want to keep structures in sync, hierarchies in sync. And there's a whole section in the documentation that walks you through how to do that migration from EPMA to DRM. So that's one of those areas I just talked about where depending on what you're running, you may have some utilities or other steps you may have to do a complete migration of an upgrade of your system into 11.2. Couple other things in the financial close area. We had a set of dashboards and other visualizations, something called Oracle Financial Management Analytics. It was really a very rarely used functionality, and mainly because it required a license to OBIEE, and you had to lay that down in order to get some pre-configured dashboards. So that has been sunset and not available in 11.2. We've also, one thing we always want to make sure Hyperion customers are aware of, prior to Oracle and Hyperion, before Hyperion came into Oracle, Hyperion had acquired a company called Brio, and Brio had with it a whole set of BI products, interactive reporting, SQR. We also had something called web analysis. Well, those have had a statement of direction for the last 5 years or 6 years that those were being replaced, and that 11.124 was their terminal release. So that is something that we want to make sure everyone continues to be aware of, that that's been communicated for quite a while. OBIE was the way forward if you still want to use BI tools away from interactive reporting and web analysis as well. So just be aware of those. On the planning side, there was a bit more changes here. things like strategic finance, it was based on it was a legacy stack. It had a lot of old technology in it. Most customers have moved to strategic modeling in the cloud. It was a good entry point into the cloud. Planning is a good first application to get up and running in the cloud. So strategic finance is not offered on-prem anymore in 11.2. And then the modules we had, workforce, CapEx, project planning. If you have those applications, they'll upgrade. You can continue to run those. There's no problem. The only thing that we don't do anymore is we don't offer those as net new application types. So if you go in planning and you want to go create an application and call it workforce planning, you won't see the predefined content there to do that. So that's not part there. But again, if you're a customer that has existing apps, those move fine. And really the last piece really there of note would be for some of the customers that were doing offline planning was something everybody wanted to do initially, but very few ever deployed it because planning is built on the S-based engine, so it required having some engine components and other heavy weight down on the client, and then you're mainly using SmartView to interact with planning, downloading forms, et cetera. So we had that there, but then found most customers never really used it, so that's also not there now. So, that's kind of a high level. So there are changes at that level in terms of some of the functionalities that are or aren't offered or what their replacements are. So all of these are statements of direction that are posted in Oracle support. So definitely, go ahead and go into your support portal and just look for those statements of direction, and you'll see those.
Thank you, Al. What are the risks for not upgrading to 11.2?
Okay, so right now, and we talked about the lifetime support policy, and if you go and you look at 11.124, you're going to see that it runs out of Premier support on at the end of December 2021. So roughly what's a little about 7 months or so away, 8 months away from now. And so the risk of not being in support or not upgrading to 11.2 is you'll run out of Premier support, and it goes into sustaining. There is no extended support that's listed there. So what happens at that point in sustaining support is it still gives you the ability to get access and download any prior release software, patches, certifications, and updates. And you can still use tech support to log issues and things like that. But there's not really going to be any new patches that are provided for any other subsequent issues you find. So that's the biggest problem is you want to be on software that's actively supported. So that's currently where that's at.
Okay, thank you very much there. What support can Oracle give if businesses are unable to upgrade due to budget or time constraints?
Okay, so that's a good question. So we talked about December 2021 isn't really that far off. But there are some exception-based programs that a customer can request inclusion in. But these largely get initiated in conjunction with your respective sales team. The reason for this is simple, right? Let's first talk about 11.124. It is an older code line. It runs on platforms and tech stacks that are also kind of that are coming up on the end of their support cycles. So I believe, for example, we still support like 2012 for SQL Server in 11.124. So, even that's being phased out by Microsoft, and that's not really going to be supported. Additionally, the third-party components that we identify in our third-party acknowledgements guide that's on docs.oracle.com, those also, we sign contracts for support from those third-party vendors as well. And so their code, they move on to newer code as well. So eventually those start to run out of support. So we do have some limited time programs that we could extend support for a limited time. But the reason that we kind of have you go through sales or work with your sales teams is our goal is to make sure we're getting you to, and that there is an active plan, a timeline, a project to get to a supported code line where you can take the fullest benefit of your support dollars and probably also be compliant from a SOX perspective as well, that you're on code lines that are actively supported. So check with yours. The reality is your next question may be, well, why don't you just update that stuff in 11.124? the reality is that's essentially what 11.2 is. If you look, I kind of read about some, yeah, we slimmed down some functionality, but we didn't release a bunch of new features on purpose. The main reason was to update that whole tech stack to start, to make it easier for customers to move to 11.2 to start without having to worry about, well, the user interfaces have changed, this product has different functionality now, everything's moved around, I have to retrain my users, where it becomes a much larger implementation effort. The goal there was to really say, let's take what customers are used to running, that they're comfortable running, that they've been running a very long time, and let's just upgrade all that technical stack, third party, and other infrastructure so that we can get customers lifted to that easier. So so that's kind of the goal there, and kind of how you can go about looking for an exception-based program. So work with your sales team there, and then keep in mind your project could be 11.2 on what we call OCI. You may want to run it on Oracle Cloud Infrastructure. We have the OCI team, Oracle Consulting, other partners, they've been implementing on OCI already, which is good. That gives them a common stack. It leaves you less worried about, well, what's the exact version of operating system I'm running on or something else, because OCI is going to mandate that you be on supported, databases and everything else as well. So keep that in mind. And then you also have third-party infrastructure that you can run on as well. So.
Thank you. If companies are on older versions of HFM, can they upgrade directly to 11.2?
Yeah, well, 11.124 to 11.2 is the tested and certified migration path that we did from a development perspective. But this goes making, and this kind of goes back again, we talked a little bit about the lifetime support policy, but along with that is also really make sure customers understand the grace periods and error correction policies that Oracle has. So again, that's all available within Oracle support. So you can just do a search in there for that. But it kind of mandates, like, even though you may be running under 11.121, and certainly 11.1.2 is supported. That's the thing that gets you to December 2021. But all patches that happen even today are really against 11.124. That's a code line that's actively there, because as we release new updates, you only carry grace period and patching for the last couple of code lines. And so that's kind of how the on-premises world works. And so it's important for people to understand that. But for all intents and purposes, a lot of what you can do, you could probably come from an 11.123. We know partners have done that. There's probably a few more manual steps, other things they have to do, maybe to tweak the LCMs and stuff like that. So if you're on 11.124, it's definitely much easier. If you're on older code lines, there's probably going to be additional work that has to be done there. But if there's specific use cases, it's easiest to answer questions if we kind of understand better specific products and what patch level you're on, to understand, what your path is to go forward.
Thank you. How long will Oracle support the current version of HFM?
So this one's for me. So hello, everybody. So, Al talked earlier about the support timelines. And so HFM obviously falls under the standard support timelines. So 11.1.2 will be under Premier support through December of this year, and then it moves to sustaining support. And 11.2 is in that Applications Unlimited, which right now is in Premier support through 2032. So just remember, HFM falls within the overall timelines for all of this. And so our support guidelines will follow exactly what we've discussed earlier. It's important, if you don't remember or don't know those differences between Premier and sustaining, you can review that on the Oracle lifetime support policy. But essentially, sustaining, you'll get any available patches, you can call support, but no new patches will be created. That's the real difference, as well as no new platform support will come for anything in sustaining. But it's just December 2021 for 11.1.2, and it's right now it's through 2032 for 11.2.
Thank you. What about Hyperion EPM customers that also have full use Essbase, such as Essbase Plus?
Yeah, this is a good question, and we get this a lot. So we know historically customers have bought Hyperion or EPM with Essbase. We were a common team, obviously, back in the Hyperion days. Essbase now, organizationally within Oracle, is part of the database. And so, it's an engine for EPM. We had a lot of customers that had both these licenses. And what we deliver in 11.2 EPM is a modified version of 11.124 Essbase. Okay. And we're just using it because we just use it as an engine. The functionality we need was all supported there, but we lifted that version to the new tech stack to be consistent with EPM, meaning it supports Windows 2009, it supports Linux 7, it supports, all the same, things that EPM 11.2 does from a matrix standpoint. The problem was that as customers upgraded there, they say, well, what do I use for my Essbase? Because if I go to 21C, I can't use shared services. They had like all these disconnects. So what we did is we just modified, and again, this is in the documentation, it's called the licensing guide. So again, if you just go to the Oracle documentation site, you look for on-prem 11.2, you'll see the licensing guide there. We actually modified the language in there to say, as long as you have if you're fully licensed for Essbase and you have an EPM license, you can use the Essbase we package for your custom or full use Essbase apps as well. That's fine. You can stay on the same version, so it helps you to just have that single deployment, and you can just put your apps all in there, your custom apps, and they could be mixed in with your EPM apps if you want, and it's all good. If you're only an Essbase customer, you should really be, and you're not doing EPM, but you're just using Essbase, you should really look at just going to 21C, because that's the next generation Essbase that even we will uptake at some point in the future, but 21C would be your path forward if all you were an Essbase customer.
Thank you. What is the impact of the 11.2 upgrade on Close and Reconciliation Manager within HFM?
So there really is no impact. Close and Reconciliation Manager are part of Financial Close Management, which, remember, is a separate install from HFM. And the assumption is if you're moving to 11.2, you're going to move your entire portfolio to 11.2. So you would also be upgrading Financial Close Management as well. So obviously, we would recommend you don't want to have, different versions of those. I don't think it would make any sense. So I would assume you would upgrade the entire stack to 11.2, and you would have the same, level of support, same level of functionality that you have today. So once again, it's really just a matter of what is your EPM portfolio and doing that overall upgrade, not just HFM, but upgrading all the components to 11.2. But it should not have any issue.
Thank you. Would system performance be affected by the upgrade?
Yeah, I mean, I've done this job for 21 years, and people are always asking about performance. That's the one consistent when you deal in consolidations. The good news is, as part of this upgrade, most of the customers who have done it, are moving to newer hardware, and so obviously they're getting some of the benefits of newer hardware, which ultimately gives faster performance. That being said, I think if you look online, there's some reports of people reporting slower performance, a number of reports of people reporting faster performance. I think in general, it's going to come in right about the same. That's really our goal. There was no code changes designed to make things slower or faster. Those are things that we're working on for some of the future releases. But I would assume performance should come in, where you're at today, depending what you're upgrading from. If you're coming from 11.124, you should basically see the same. If you're coming from earlier versions, you should see faster, just because 11.124 and 11.2 are really the fastest releases we have.
Thank you. Is EPM 11.2, including HFM, compatible with the latest releases of Windows and Offices, etc.?
Yes, this one I won't have a long-winded answer. The answer is yes, but yeah, our first release of 11.2 was actually on Windows 2019, and then we found out, and we really did that just to get on the latest, because that had just come out from Microsoft at the end of 2018. But then we realized most customers were, hey, our corporate standard is 2016. So we made sure we went back and certified on 2016, et cetera. So yes, on Windows, Office, yeah, I mean, SmartView, the thing with SmartView is we're always up to the latest and greatest there because of how broadly SmartView is used across not only EPM, but Essbase and even Cloud ERP uses SmartView quite a bit. So we're always, and we work very closely with Microsoft. So yes, that's always the latest there. Same with databases. I mean, the tech stack, we're really looking, we're still certifying a few things here and there, getting caught up. Some things were dependent on Fusion middleware, like for SQL Server 2019. So we're working first, we need Fusion middleware to support that, which they just completed, I believe. And then we'll be adding that to our matrix in our next cycle. So you'll see some of those that you'll just see these updates come as we get them certified and as the vendors update their products.
Thank you. What browsers are supported with 11.2?
So with 11.2, we had already supported Firefox and Edge we've added, and Chrome. And we still have IE listed, but we know IE is going away. I mean, even Microsoft's really pushing everybody to go to the Edge browser. So those are the main ones we support: Firefox, Edge, and Chrome. And then with IE slowly going away because Microsoft is phasing it out. And as usual, for mostly, and this is true even in the cloud, I do want to just call out, like when you come to Firefox, we standardize on the ESR releases of Firefox. So that's the extended support release. Those are the ones that are really intended for corporations. So what happens is if you just have the general purpose Firefox, you'll know if you go into help about, you see that you're running an ESR release or not. The ESR just means they'll eventually catch up to all those, 69.1, 72, whatever the releases are. They upgrade the standalone enterprise intended versions more quickly, and then those move into the ESR release that has a little more stable numbering, but that has to make sure that corporate apps and everything are supported there. So if all you use your browser for is surfing and doing stuff, you're fine. With corporate apps, it has a little bit slower cadence, and that gives us all time to kind of absorb these new browser updates and have more consistency around when they phase those into there. So understanding whether you're running an ESR version or not is important.
Thank you. Does Oracle plan any future enhancements to HFM?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the beginning, Al was talking about the applications unlimited and what does that mean? And obviously we've said this before, you all can go out and look this up on the Oracle site. It's all publicly listed. But Applications Unlimited does, say we're going to innovate on the product and come out with new features and functions. So just to give you a little flavor of some of the things we're working on, from a technical side, we're working on Linux support that should come later this year. So, this won't have any dependencies. You'll be able to run on pure Linux if you want to. Additionally, from a technical side, we also are working on SSL support for every layer. So really every layer of the stack would have SSL support. That's a request we've been getting from some of our customers also. From a functional side, obviously replacing Metadata Manager. So we're working on metadata management. It's likely, originally we were focusing on SmartView based, but I think now we're back to web-based, or actually maybe a combination of both. And that should come up probably early next year. A replacement for the application Toolbox. I know that was something a lot of people liked and that went away. So that will, not all of it, but some of the key items in the Toolbox will definitely come back. SmartView has had some enhancements and, on the client side that we need our provider to update and support. So we're going to work on that. And I actually was doing some trolling a few months ago on our internal systems, looking at what are some of the enhancement requests with the most customers associated with it. There's some reporting I can do where I can look at enhancement requests and sort them by number of customers associated to them. That really tells me, right, what are the most popular requests. And so there's definitely some task audit items out there where there's some maybe holes in some of the task audit that people want us to fix. And there's also some items in copy application where people want us to enhance copy application. There's a number of other areas too. So we're really going to focus on sort of what are some of the key elements you all are asking us for. I've got some great reporting where I can look at that. And then we're just going to go ahead and knock those off in some of the releases as they come out. One last thing to note is from a FDM standpoint, we are also going to certify an SAP adapter sometime in the near future. for SAP, for FDM and a certified SAP adapter. So a lot of good innovations across both the technical side as well as the functional side. And everything I covered is really just in sort of the next 6 months to a year timeframe. Obviously, there'll be further items, but those will all be based on user demand.
Thank you. What will be the compatibility to future releases of Office, given that 11.2 is supported at least through 2032?
Yeah. So one thing with SmartView, what's interesting is, we have a great relationship with Microsoft. In fact, we've presented to their internal Office team, because we've kind of been recognized as one of the companies that massage and utilize the most interfaces, API interfaces, or programmatic interfaces that Microsoft has in their Office products, and most importantly in Excel. So we have a great relationship with them. So we'll continue to, as long as there's Microsoft Office there, we're going to continue to provide updates there. And kind of an example of that is just kind of, explain a little bit there. Aside from just doing what we do in SmartView, I mentioned earlier that SmartView does a couple releases a year, 2 to 3 core SmartView, and then if you have certain extensions, like there's an extension for FR to bring things in, those just get updated as needed. But the core SmartView gets updated, and when that one gets updated, it's compatible against all the active sources, actively supported sources. So even the one we're releasing now, the numbering has changed from 11.125.810.900. We were still under the 11.125 numbering for SmartView, because we didn't really know how to number it, because we have Essbase on-prem that was having it started to do its own numbering as they started to do other releases. We have EPM, then we have ERP in the cloud, we have ours in the cloud, and now we have Essbase 21C and 19C and everything else. So we kind of changed that numbering, so it's reflected as year, similar to our cloud numbering. So the latest release, I believe, is 20, meaning it was released in 2020, .200. So it was the second release of SmartView in 2020. So what we'll do there, we did that, and then one of the projects we did was start to do a new version of SmartView using the Office 365 interfaces. So Office 365 can run on-prem, on Windows. That's what we support with the existing COM-based one. But we wanted to also support, we have a lot of users now, especially with NetSuite and other things in the cloud, that use Macintoshes and or starting to use browser-based Office instead of installing on the clients. So we have a new add-in. Right now, we just have it exposed for our cloud applications. We're going to monitor, as Rich said. Part of what Apps Unlimited is our roadmap gets heavily influenced by customer requests as well now. So, we really want to start delivering impactful functionality that customers look for. So right now, that's just, in that environment, but it works within Office on the browser when you're running in the browser, or on a Macintosh as well. So, there we work closely with Microsoft because they didn't have the interfaces we need. We'd give them a list. Hey, here's 20 things we need for us to start our work. They would deliver those 20 interfaces for us. We'd start doing our work, and we'd give them a list of the next 20. And so we kind of have this cadence that we're still going on for, because, the Windows SmartView has evolved for so long that it has so much rich functionality in it, and VB and all this other stuff. When you're running natively on the Mac or in browser, those interfaces weren't there. So as they're delivering, we're expanding. So we can do forms and all these other things. Long story short, Office is always going to be a big thing. The new plugin, though, also gives us the ability to start to look at other types of Office products. So, for example, Google or LibreOffice or other things like that. We haven't committed to all those yet, but we have working prototypes. So you may also see us start to embrace other Office solutions. So it's important to let us know, not only we're always going to keep up with the latest on-prem deployments of Office, but if you're starting to look more towards a non-Windows deployment of Office, keep us posted on that, because that may find its way into the roadmap for on-prem as well.
Thank you very much. This is the last question. Oracle Database 12.2x support is to end on March 31st, 2026. What will happen after that?
Well, for us, I mean, obviously, Oracle will still have another release of the database, and we'll be supporting those releases as well. So we'll continue to support those releases. As part of the Apps Unlimited kind of mandate, our goal would be to make it as seamless as possible from the application side, meaning, well, we shouldn't really expect to do any other big migrations. And I believe the same holds true for the technology stack that Oracle provides. So, as we phase in new updates to Fusion Middleware, for example, it's not an out of place upgrade. It's not, we've already upgraded Fusion Middleware a couple of times in the 11.2 code line. And for the database, it should be the same when they deliver their next version, or whether it's an offshoot of 19C, whether they start to formally change the numbering, because 19C is basically a derivation of 12.2.2, I believe, or 12.2.3. Their numbering will probably start to evolve as well, because they just have that single application that can run on OCI, or it runs down on, so they start to use that C designation just like Essbase does. So we'll be supporting that. So yeah, just stay tuned as we continue to upgrade our compat matrix. You'll see those in there. And as mentioned, for us, it should just be a database upgrade, but you shouldn't have to do anything from the application side to take advantage of that.
Thank you very much, Al, and thank you very much, Rich and Maya, for joining us on this podcast. Really, some very interesting questions. I would really like to link this to feedback and also polls that we'll do. So definitely encourage from the user community feedback, and that's how things will improve in a two-way communication. So yes, thank you so much, and we'll keep in tune for the next podcast. What we will do is talk about the future of HFM, and then go on to FCCS. So yeah, have a good day. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.